Good morning and welcome to the KDPG Sunday edition. I'm John Delano. Stacy Smith and Ken Rice are away this week. This week, news that a voter profiling company was able to access the personal data of 50 million Facebook subscribers did not receive a like on their Facebook pages. In fact, what is being called the Cambridge Analytica scandal is also getting a thumbs down from the Federal Trade Commission, which has launched an investigation into how this took place. As CBS's Mola Lenghi reports, findings that Cambridge Analytica had ties to President Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign created more questions for Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg.
Congress wants to know how Facebook became a tool deployed on behalf of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. After days of silence, the social network's chief executive apologized for the way a political consulting firm harvested and used data on 50 million users.
I'm really sorry that this happened. We have a basic responsibility to protect people's data. And if we can't do that, then we don't deserve to have the opportunity to serve people.
The British firm Cambridge Analytica is accused of using information from a third party even after assuring Facebook the data would be deleted. Zuckerberg says it may be time to impose regulations on tech companies, and he promises to investigate apps that access users' information.
If we detect any suspicious activity, we're going to do a full forensic audit.
Lawmakers have said they would like to hear from Zuckerberg in person. Even after his apology, some are demanding he appear to explain what happened. Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey tweeted, "The more we learn, the more this demands answers. You need to come to Congress and testify under oath." Analysts are calling this Zuckerberg's biggest crisis, and a movement for users to quit Facebook has gathered some steam. Mola Lenghi, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Now, this morning on the KDPG Sunday edition, we'll take a look at the growing pains being experienced by social media, how its regulation differs from other forms of media, and how its followers will react to problems like this. We welcome two guests from Point Park University to this program. Dr. Heather Starr-Fiedler is professor of social media and chair of the Department of Community Engagement, both growing fields of study. Paige Beal is chair of Sports, Arts, and Entertainment Management at Point Park's Rowland School of Business. David Schrittman, executive editor of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, is also with us for this morning's discussion. Ladies, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. I'm going to confess right up front, I am not a Facebook user. I am a Twitter user, so I care a little bit about social media. But I think what really bothers me and a lot of other people is the invasion of privacy that occurs through social media and the potential use and misuse of data information that we post by nefarious folks, either for political purposes or criminal purposes. So let me just start with a basic question to you. Have we gone over the bridge or under the bridge and over the dam here? Is there no going back with respect to social media? It's just there as part of our lives?
I think it's there as part of our lives, yes. I think people at this point have grown used to it. I just spoke with my class yesterday, the millennials, and they don't even see a problem with this. They're just so used to it because they're digital natives that but they also are going in, I think, with a much clearer head about what is happening on social media than maybe some of us are at our age.
They don't care about their own privacy rights.
Well, they expressed to me yesterday that they're fully aware when they sign up for a social media account and when they agree to share their information with a third-party app, that they know that information is going to be used to target them in advertising. And they said as long as we don't have a problem with that, we'll keep clicking yes.
Is that true for your students as well, Paige?
Very much so. It's a opportunity for them to do the things, go through life with the convenience of maps and GPS, and as well as the social aspect of it. So the cost of it, the cost of this convenience and the ability to connect with so many different things comes with some of the privacy issues that we're talking about. And they're willing to, go ahead and take that cost on.
So is this basically a wager that I get to see what my friends are doing, and I get to communicate instantly, and I get to do all this other stuff when they should be reading books, in exchange for maybe getting a couple ads?
Yeah, but I will say that I think that there's a misunderstanding or a lack of clarity to any of them at the depth of the invasion. I don't think
they don't understand it.
Yes, right. I don't think we understand it. I think that there's so much that's involved. Every time you sign up for an app, for instance, you've got that super long terms and conditions that you are, generally speaking, scrolling through and hitting the I accept.
Without reading.
Nobody reads it.
Right,
Nobody
right.
reads it. Nobody really knows the level of application interface with Facebook, which can be very, very deep.
Our friend John Delano here is not on Facebook, but I bet he has one of those little CVS or Giant Eagle cards, and your privacy is being invaded.
Well, that's true. I mean, we all have credit cards,
Yes,
and,
right.
and we have those special cards that we use in order to get discounts on things,
Right.
and data is being collected all the time on all of us.
Big data is here, and it's being used way more than we even realize. The idea of micro-targeting in political campaigns is not new, but I think the way it's being used in the most recent election is something that's a little bit scary that I don't even think we know the depths of yet. But this Facebook scandal is certainly shedding some light on how far it's going to micro-target certain populations.
Paige, is this any different, really, from, say, Democratic candidate, left-leaning Democratic candidate advertising on black radio, and a right-leaning candidate advertising during the Final Four? And is this just just an extension of that? It doesn't strikes me as being the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the Cambridge Analytica situation sparked a little bit more visceral response because it is deemed, psychological warfare. It has that spin. But quite honestly, anybody can go on Facebook today and target a campaign to the Christian left or the right.
Or you could buy an ad on General Hospital in the middle of the afternoon. Was that a CBS show?
Yeah.
and go to a certain demographic there.
You can, not quite as well defined within
But there
or Google.
But the regulations are different, and I want to ask you to talk about that, because social media, there has been a resistance by Mark Zuckerberg and by others in social media to be regulated, to play by the same rules, and to make information transparent, and basically to allow people the option of opting out and not opting out and sharing what they want to share. Talk to us about first of all, what are the differences? Are there any regulations of social media right now?
Not much. I think most of it is voluntary at this point. Even the FTC for social media, and they've asked for certain social media sites like Google to promise that they won't violate people's privacy, but then they've gone and done it again after they've made those promises. So I think that it's something that we will see in the coming years, that there should and probably will be more regulation.
Right. If there's a data breach in a corporation, there are clear laws and rules, and in fact, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania is investigating a case right now in which they would prosecute companies that don't report data breaches to their customers right away. But nothing like that.
Yeah. I think where this particular case is interesting is that I don't even know that Facebook is calling it a data breach. Because the data at the time was collected knowingly. People agreed to their terms of service at the time, which said they can collect information from both them and their friends. That's where the 300,000 people that got the app then turned into 50 million people, because it included all of their friends as well. Facebook changed those terms a year later, but at that point the database had been created. Where the breach came in was after Facebook, when the app developer gave that information to Cambridge Analytica. So Facebook is sort of
saying,
give that or sell
it
wasn't our fault. I don't know that that's clear.
Yeah.
I would assume he sold it, but it really doesn't say too much about how they got that information.
Yeah.
Paige, your thoughts on that?
Well, the FCC regulates broadcast.
Right.
This station and all the over-the-air stations, because there's a clear definition of this is owned by the government. So these airwaves are owned and regulated. Nobody really knows what is owned and regulated regarding the internet, so there's no agreement upon who can actually make that happen. Probably the closest thing is the net neutrality issue, and that's a distribution issue, it's not a content issue. You and I both know that if an ad comes in, it gets scrutinized before it goes on the air, because there are certain regulations.
Commercial ads do. Political ads do not. Political ads, as I tell everybody, candidates for public office have the right to lie in their TV commercials, and they do all the time.
Do they have the right to be obscene?
Terrible.
They don't have the right to be obscene.
Yeah.
They don't have the right to be obscene.
But it's a fine line, depending upon how you view that. And I know we have to we have to take any political ads that come in, but everything else is regulated.
Right.
Now that is not the case on these. And you know, Zuckerberg, what was interesting in his latest interviews is he is talking now about, we wouldn't mind regulation, but what does that look like? You know, it's like, well, what is it? Because it's a slippery slope to freedom of speech and regulation.
Right.
But other industries have found that regulation is their friend.
Yes.
In which they
he may at this point be willing
in which
to
they
embrace
protect
it.
They protect them rather than, yes.
And I think where this crosses a line that we maybe haven't seen before is that it goes beyond the black and white of is it an advertisement or not. And some of these organizations are creating fake news stories and creating fake groups and fake user profiles and influencing some public decisions. And it doesn't appear as a typical advertisement that we might say, okay, that's an ad, I don't want to look at that. It appears as something that comes up in our news feed as a real group or a real article that isn't.
And it raises real questions. Again, what is the social medium's responsibility to weed out fake news? Or does that put them in a position of censorship?
Yes.
And who defines what's fake news? The president's definition of fake news is far different from mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think from, you know, in the past, social media has always wanted to act like the telephone company. You know, we provide the line, what you say on it is not our responsibility, as opposed to like the traditional media where we're responsible for what we say and what's published in our
In fact, we're
papers.
also responsible for what other people say on our air and in our print.
Right. So
That's
social
true.
media, I think, has always fallen on that telephone company platform where we're providing the medium, but not regulating the content, and I think that might be changing.
But there is a difference, because when you're on social media, you essentially have behind you all kinds of analytics about you, and if you can make that accessible to all kinds of other people without your knowledge, it seems to me there's a violation there. Maybe it's just me.
Well, it might be, but you know, there's an implicit agreement that we all make, and this is, I think, where it becomes a little gray. We all make this implicit agreement with all of this technology that, you know, I'm going to get this for free in return for giving up my information. And it's not just online or in social media. We do it everywhere else. You know, Experian has, you know, databases that are just overwhelming, but we never really understand the end game in that agreement and how definitive it can be in affecting our lives and our culture.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. We have to take a quick break. This is a great conversation, and there's so much more. I want to ask a little bit more about what the nature of regulation could be going forward, and secondly, on the impact on our politics, which I think is absolutely critical to our democracy. Stick with us. We'll be right back.